Welcome to Shareholder Q&A, a production of AGORACOM, in which investors are able to post their questions online to the CEOs who then answer them via video. With us today, Bernard Tourillon, HPQ Silicon. I normally do an intro on most of our interviews, but not doing it today because it's a shareholder Q&A. So if you're part of this, it means you already know what the company's doing and you're here for more detail. Bernard, thanks for joining us today. You got a bit of a sore throat and yet you're going through with it. So we thank you for that.
Well, maybe by the end of the Q&As, I'll have no voice left, but that's okay.
Well, that would be a blessing to your wife and to me. So, we can only hope. All right. Hey, let's hop straight into the questions because there are a bunch of them. And we've tried to organize them a little bit by topic where possible, but there's just such a strong concentration where what the questions are about. So we're just going to go through them here. The first set of questions comes from Flyby, who wants to talk about the timeline for commercial QR plant to be built and production ready. What year is expected for commercial plant to be built and operational?
Hasn't changed from what we said, 2000, I think it's 2025. We said 2024, 2025. But what people have to realize is the market has evolved so much in the last year because of world events that I'm playing around with ways of speeding up. There is structural demand for what we're about to do. One of the things I've discovered is that our QRR technology is at the heart of everything has to do with silicon, silicon metal, all right? And it's really it really allows us to position ourselves in a lot of discussion. I just came back from Europe, and there is a clear intention to what's called reshore production. Same thing in the US, same thing in Canada. We're actually in Canada, they're talking about friendshoring, which means you want to build the industrial production in areas which are friendly nations. And that in the case of silicon, that leaves you with a very interesting conundrum. The leaders and the biggest producer of silicon in the world are China, because we offshore that basically very polluting or negative for the environment process. And if we want to reshore, we can't reshore with the old technologies. So we'll need a new technology coming in, and lo and behold, the QRR is coming along, much more flexible and much more presented. So
how do you speed up that process? Can you start off the answer by saying you might
how do you speed up the process? Those are big industrial process. The beauty of what I'm saying, okay, is that a lot of my clients, let's just talk about the clients of the battery safety. Even if they want to speed it up, they're not going to be at capacity or demand until 2025, 2026.
Right.
If I look at Sila technology, Sila nanotechnologies, they're using saline gas to do their material. They're plugging themselves next to the plant that does that in the US. Well, that's all good and nice. But once they reach maximum capacity of that plant, they got 15 years, tons of license to trade to build a second plant for it. So the timing for us is very, very good. As fast as we can do it, basically it's the best expression. As fast as we can do it efficiently, we'll do it because there is a demand for what we're doing. Okay.
I guess the natural follow-up after that is maybe people think about at home is then once you're at that point, you can scale a lot faster than anybody.
Well, scaling up, the biggest scaling up challenge, okay, is the one we're living right now. Okay. From the QRR, the Gen 2 QRR to the Gen 3, that's the biggest scale up we will ever do. All right. After that, we have a very clear plan. We scale it up to the next logical size, where we keep talking about 2,500 metric ton per year. And then after that, it's copy and paste. So, the first 2,500 tests is going to be, a prototype. But once you get it down, just like in the aviation business, the first 5 you build, you learn a lot. But by the 7th, then you go full throttle. It's not going to be 7 for us, but I was just using aviation as a counterpart. So the key point for us is what we're going through right now is the biggest scale-up challenge. So the next ones are going to be smaller, okay? but they're normal in the R&D phase. But once you look at the industrial, and I think I've explained this in the past, for us to get the Quebec government money, we had to demonstrate that the next scaling up was an industrial scale scaling up and, get that moving. So this is where we are.
And I got
we're there.
Again, I don't want my question to be part of this, but I'm sure people thinking at home, because you said it a couple of times, how is this scale up process going right now between Gen 2 and Gen 3?
Well, from what we've published, well, it wasn't that long ago, I published the 72-hour test, which was really a key determination. Okay. Now, the test went well. I'm not issuing anything, how can I say, like material, but by saying this, because if the test didn't go well and there was damage to it, that would be material I have to issue it. So that's why I sort of also waited for being us almost at the end of the test before we issued the press release. It was mostly like concept. The information I got is everything looks great, but they did learn, like totally expected. They learned a few things, and they're going to do a bit of process improvements. It's exactly as I said in the press release. And then the next stage is we're putting material into the machine. This is it. We're here. We've been struggling for all these years, and we're finally here.
Okay. Next question from Flyby, because I want to make sure we don't get too off track when it becomes a Georgia Bernard show. What is the expected price that you're going to charge for pilot plant silicon? And what is the rate of silicon production per month from the pilot plant?
Okay, that's an interesting question in the sense that it's a 50-ton per year plant. I don't know, it's not very complicated to make the math. All right. But in the phase that we're doing right now, okay, it's not designed to take it into production. It's an R&D machine that at the end we're supposed to close it. Now, having made that parenthesis, price we're going to sell it is we're going to send away those samples. It's the beginning is, you want to get people interested in what you're doing. You send away samples for people to test and look at the material. But we're already thinking about this. I was in discussion last week with a potential client. He really wants our 4N material. It's a big company and they're waiting for our material. So it's like, you imagine the frustration I'm having. Like I'm waiting for material to go through and to start this discussion.
But is that frustration because it's a problem, or frustration that this is just a normal course of how it has to go?
It's not a frustration because there's any issue. Okay. That's if there's one message. The frustration is there is no bug. It's just very hard to glue a timeline. All right. And the closer we get to the end, the more difficult it is. And I keep getting questioned about timeline. It doesn't work. Now, I'm going to close this parenthesis about the 50 tons. So we're going to do this work. And my original thought was, let's just go focus and go take a look at building the bigger machine and not worry too much about the 50 tons. But what I'm hearing from the industry, what I'm hearing from people is there might be a business case for us to say, okay, we finished this. We finished the R&D. We got all the information we need to scale this up. Okay, maybe we could operate this machine to produce 50 ton of high purity silicone over a year period. Sorry about that. Because one of the end client, might be looking at that material, that could be an interesting business to develop. Now, as for the price of what it is that it goes for, regular silicone metal historically was going for 3,500 a ton. Ours is going to go for a significant premium because we're pure, but what is it going to be? 8, 10,000, 15,000, depending how we transfer it for specialized niche application where there is no competitor. And that's really what we're looking at. And where we have no competitor is in the fact that those end application need 4N, which is feasible. But the problem is for the 4N that's presently available, it's batch driven from different production. That means there is no continuity of quality. You're not assured of all the quality. With the QRR, you will always be assured of quality because we're just we're producing batch per batch. It's going to be similar. And I think that's what's starting to attract people. So the key takeaway is the 50 ton, the project, the plan we had designed originally was we just do the R&D, we just get the machine, we produce enough material, we'll have, 100 kilogram, 200, 500 kilograms. I don't know at the end what we're going to end up having. We'll have more than enough materials to start sending it and getting samples. But there might be a business case to make that says, oh, okay, we'll start operating the 50 as a business. It's probably not going to be a profitable business, but it's going to help us to develop an even bigger business down the line on a market niche that when we started this, we didn't know we had.
Next set of questions comes from Dunice or Donis. Dunice. When the quartz feedstock starts being fed into the pilot plant, in what form will the finished product silicon be in? Will it be poured into bars or smaller forms such as pellets, or another form which makes it easier for the next stage when it is turned into the nano powders?
Oh, wow. A lot of questions into this. Okay.
Well, one question and almost like a multiple choice. Bars, pellets.
Actually, it's gonna be poured into a crucible, okay, and let cool down. At this stage, what we're gonna do. There is some discussion about the other phases, how we can do to maybe go, with liquid version of the material to be fed into the next phase to reduce the energy cost, which are all very viable things that we're going to be looking at. But at this stage, my goal is just to get material in the crucible, then we have 4N, and then we'll move it on. When we're going to be looking at setting up commercial production systems, of course, we're going to be looking at those options. So people have to realize it. The Gen 3 is a pilot plant. It's there for help us to reach some specific goal, which is to make some material. From then on, we will be able to implement a lot of other ideas.
Next question. Could you please describe the process that the quartz will go through as it is fed into the pilot plant to when it leaves the pilot plant as a finished product? I don't know if you could describe that process because you'd be giving away your secrets.
Well, maybe it's time for me to give away a secret. It's we're not the QRR process is very similar, okay, to the traditional process being used, but there are some specific improvements which we've talked about. It's an enclosed system, and we do it under vacuum. So it's the same process that happens in the traditional arc furnace. Basically, the quartz and the carbon will be mixed together, heated to the extremely high temperature. At that temperature, the natural reaction will come about, and silicon will be produced, and liquid silicon will be poured out of the reactor. That's the plan. And I don't expect anything, outside of that happening. I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, as best you can. Yeah, but you're the A's, right? That's your title right there. So if that's your answer, that's your answer.
Repeat the question. Maybe I missed something.
Could you please describe the process that the quartz will go through as it is fed into the pilot plant to when it leaves the pilot plant as a finished product?
Well, if people are curious to figure about this, if they do research on carbothermic process of making silicon metal, they'll get information from everybody else. It's the same process. It's just we've significantly improved and changes the way the thoughts are. As I said many times between us, it's the same. If you look about it, a mainframe computer was just a big computer that 0 and 1 added together, and we went to desktop computers. That's about.
Will HPQ be sending the silicon produced by the pilot plant for testing for purity? I know you kind of allude to that, but I just wanted to get.
Well, yeah, of course.
Nice question in.
Of course, but there's different way of testing the purity. You can do laser count on it, but those are not very accurate. But you have to send it for full, dissolution in acid to figure out all the impurities that are left in there. If there's not that much, but there's nothing different to what we've done with the QRR Gen 2. And
last question is for the 72-hour test that you've talked about in previous press release we've talked about. How long does it take for the pilot plant to cool down?
Actually, I have that information.
Inspect the components after that 72-hour test.
Actually, I have that information. It took 3 days to cool down. Well, see, timing was good of the Q&A. I learned that yesterday because, the cool down's over.
All right. And I guess everything went well? Component inspection?
From everything I've been told, everything went very, very well. As I told you, if something didn't go well, the machine blew up or something like that, I would have to issue a press release.
Next set of questions from ASOR. Hello, Bernard. Thank you for taking our questions. Here are mine. Should something happen with the QRR, are you prepared to quickly act to get it back up and running? For example, do you have common spare parts in stock, or your supplier is able to quickly supply you?
Okay, it depends really to the extent to which we're talking about having an issue with the QRR. Okay. I can tell you that I sweated bullets during some phases. Even before this one, there was another test, and a specific material had to do with the lining that we had to install. And if there was an issue with the way it was installed and baked the first time, not this time, but the first time, it was a 6-month delay. So, there's some things we can get double and spares. Some things we can't really, because we don't anticipate. They're supposed to be long duration usage.
Yeah.
I'll give another example. We had a valve issue, and I think I spoke about this, but that valve cost a lot of money, and it was a 6-month delays. But the guys at Pyro figured a way to fix the issue, and it's not working very, very well. So this is something that Pyrogenesis does very, very well. They're accustomed to this. They don't see this as a problem. They see this as a solution to be found. This being said, we're at this moment, I don't foresee any of those issues.
Is there a dedicated team at Pyro who always and exclusively works on HPQ's QRR and NSIR projects? And if not, why not?
At this specific moment, yes, there is an exclusive team, and it's a very, very big team that's working exclusively on getting the machine operational, ready to start pouring and sampling. Remember, this is designed to be a commercial system or have commercial application. So eventually, once the system operates well, we're going to be down to 2 operators, and that's it. But that's not what we're having right now. We have more people on that. So there's a dedicated project manager that's working on it, the dedicated team, and then there's all the support team around Pyrogenesis working on this, and then there's support people around. But they do multitask between one project and another, but at this moment they're not multitasking. And also, the second project they're working for is also an HPQ project, which is the fume silica projects. But they can walk and chew gum and talk about the 2 projects. I just specifically chose not to talk about other projects as this was moving forward. Because the QRR is the most advanced one, is the one everybody's talking about, and I didn't want to create an impression that I was switching subject because there was an issue to it, which is sometimes a tendency of investors. So I wanted us to reach a certain milestone, which we're very close to being there, and then after that I can start talking about a lot of other interesting things that we're doing.
Are you in current discussions with large institutional investors who, after successful completion of phase 3, would be more inclined to invest in HPQ?
Oh, that's been ongoing for a long time.
Good to know.
The change of nature of our business, all right, wasn't done, because it looks fashionable, it looks good, and I thought it'd be cool to do. We were sort of constrained. When you're a mining company and you're trying to raise fund with large institution, you have to fit the box, which is called mining financing. Well, we don't have a deposit. So if you don't have a 43-101 of deposit, you can't get mining financing. It's as silly as that. And it was all those type of issues that we needed to resolve by not being anymore a mining company, by being a technology metal company. That's the definition they give us, but that's what we are. So we've done that process. We've changed. We became a tier 1, which we're a technology company. Now we're finishing our fiscal year. We'll do an AIF, and then we'll be in a position to get more structural financing. And before the market corrected, I can tell you that there was a lot of interest from a lot of institutions about what we're doing. And I'm pretty sure as we come out next year, there's going to be even more interest in what we're doing, because we check the boxes of so many things about what's going on that, it it's going to come to fruition. So I'm not at this stage very worried about that.
Silverbed 79. Do you have a rough idea as to how long the plant can continuously run, all while feeding it with silicone stock?
Okay. That's an interesting question, because I think I've issued multiple press releases that says we're going to run the system 24/7. The key to the invention behind the PureVac, okay, is that we're able to do semi-continuous silicone manufacturing operations under vacuum. All right. That means that we will have phases where we produce silicone, we pour the silicone, we continue to start another phase. It continues. That is the ultimate test. So the reason why we have 4 basically process improvement tests. The first test is we do silicone, we pour it, we get it. And then after that, we start moving into, okay, let's try to do 2 cycles, 3 cycles. And then when everybody feels comfortable, says, okay, we're going 24/7 for as long as it takes for us to go all the data points. Well, it might be like 3 weeks, a month of operation. So of course we're going to do multiple feeding, exiting. The system is designed to do this. We've demonstrated that this is feasible because we've done this with the Gen 2.
Does QRR, and this almost along the same lines, does QRR have to be shut down to empty the product, or can be done while still operating?
There goes the answer. We do tapping. And we've actually have a small video of a tapping test that we've done. So, this is a lot of things that we were advanced. I understand. So it took us time to get here. I get that. But we're here. And there's a lot of data point moving forward. So, there's an incredible silicone expertise that's been developed at Pyro.
Next question comes from, by the way, don't choke out while we're on air, eh? It would be bad for my ratings, or it might be
no, it'd be actually good for your ratings.
Might
You
be
would
really
be
good
hot
for
on
ratings,
YouTube. CEO dies while doing an interview with George.
He can't withstand the pressure of the questions given by George. Next up is PTE Roy.
You know the expression choking on an interview? That would really be it.
Is PTE Roy. I'm not sure if that's Private Roy, PT Roy, but anyways, PT Roy is what and someone can correct me online. These Q&As, a little humor here. These Q&As are a nice way to ask some questions, get some feedback. It's not like that at home. I haven't spoken to my wife in 20 years. I didn't want to interrupt her. You previously mentioned the size and temperature requirements of the QRR. Forward-looking past the pilot plant and onto the commercial plant, how many commercial QRR systems can HPQ fit inside its current manufacturing space? So question 1, how many commercial QRR systems can you fit inside your current manufacturing space? And then question 2, do you see space and temperature requirements as an issue moving forward when you consider all of the other systems you're developing?
Okay. Let's make it clear. I think we've announced it and we've discussed it in press release, but I can understand it. Not everybody's going to read every press release when they're going to do due diligence. The fact is, we have a dedicated space within Pyrogenesis facility. It's a dedicated space. The system, we own the system, we insured it. It's costing us a fortune to insure it. Okay. So it's our system there. It's within their system of operation. So that's question number 1. Is there enough place? No, there's not enough place there, but that's never been the goal. The goal is to validate the technology works. Now, this goes, let me make a sort of like a sidebar and go back to a previous answer. Originally, the business plan was we just get the information and then we go build the other one. This one is, okay, write it out to history and then we get the full tax credit for it. But from the discussion I'm having, I'm starting to think that maybe we'll be looking at moving that to a more permanent facility somewhere else where we can operate it continuously, that will have the room to expand it. That might be one of the options we're looking for. If, let's say that we end up signing a MOU with, one of those specialty metal manufacturers that really want our material, and in their scaling up for them, their need, we meet their need now. So, that
They want to build that.
that-
They want,
that-
and they
that's
want
becoming
capacity to build that.
that's becoming part of the thinking process. It wasn't there before, but it has become now. So that's one of the issues. Because that was question number one, and since I'm, what's question two?
Do you see space and temperature requirements an issue moving forward when you consider all the other systems you're developing? I think kind of answers.
Well, if we try to put everything there, yes. But as I said, it's always been our plan that when we're going to build a commercial size reactor, we would deal with those issues. Temperature isn't really that big of an issue. It's something understandable, controllable, manageable. All right, it's manageable. It's just you need bigger volume to be able to deal with it. But since we're talking about reactors left, right, and center, I don't foresee that as an issue. And temperature is a normal process of a carbothermic reaction that we're having.
If a major automobile manufacturer were to buy the QRR system, they might be able to control and dominate the electric vehicle space. For example, selling to their competitors at a higher price while keeping prices low in-house. I'm not sure if that's exactly how it would work, but I wanted to present that hypothetical from PT Raw. So the question is, when the QRR pilot plan is successful, are you expecting major players in the space to approach you with buyout offers?
I don't know. There might be partnership, there might be discussion. I think the strategy of the car manufacturers, okay, is going to be more to try to partner up with a company like HPQ to develop it. The parenthesis I'd like to make is this. I think people using what's going to come out. We make silicone. We make high purity silicone. That high purity silicone is therefore, then it has to be transformed into battery grade material, solar grade feedstock material, other application, silicon nitrate, all those end niche application. All right. We have a situation right now where the bulk of the silicone material for batteries is made in China, which is a situation that nobody wants to be done. And the work we've done so far and all the NDAs we've signed give us two different indications about what the market's looking for. But from the information, we've been able to ascertain, there is a specific size of material that is being used right now. And that one we could relatively do quickly with the material from the QRR, which goes on to my discussion about, maybe it'd be worth my while to start having the QRR operating more continuously once we finish all the R&D tests and we got all the data point done. So this is where I'm coming into. Yes, in theory and in practice, if somebody bought the QRR and implemented, yes, of course they would get a massive cost advantage.
But I'm not sure the dynamic about other competitors. I'll give you an example. When Elon Musk officially took control of Twitter the other day, General Motors announced that they won't be advertising on Twitter. Now, they say it's because they're not sure about the moderation and all that. But if you think about it logically, we see this business all the time. General Motors has no interest in making Elon Musk and Twitter and therefore Tesla potentially more successful. So I'm not sure if if George Calm Auto Manufacturing could buy the QRR technology and then sell and then say,
no, it's going to.
Everybody else say, I'm going to look for another alternative. I'm not going to make my competitor stronger. So I'm not even sure.
If that alternative comes, okay, and it is a feasible reality to look at. When will that happen? I don't know, but it's a feasible reality to look at. If somebody did buy it, he's not going to buy it to sell it to other people. He's going to buy it to give himself a competitive advantage. What you have to understand is that silicone manufacturing of the quality that the battery guys need, okay, is not that easy to get to. There is a massive shortage of silicone coming, okay, and China is not going to meet the demand coming along. So you're going to have a need to reshore, rebring into it. So when the U.S. government announced, that I don't know, was the Inflation Act, but in reality was just to make sure they reintegrate in the U.S. chip manufacturing. Well, at the core of that process, what the central part of that process is making the metallurgic grade or the 2N purity silicone material, and then basically turning it down to the right size material for the end process. So we're literally at the center of this. And we're the only company that's coming on with a new process. Our process is smaller, scalable, so we can go more specifically to niches. Our competitors have to build 30,000, 40,000 metric ton system. That requires, 6 tons of raw material, carbon, environment. I was reading there was an attempt by a group of people in, I think it's Washington State or in one of those areas, to build a massive silicone metal plant. And they were hitting environmental questions left, right, and center. It's what too many people don't realize, but to make 1 gram of silicone, you generate 4 grams of CO2. So they were saying, well, we're going to build a plant and we're going to generate 700,000 tons of CO2 per year. That's ding, ding, ding. That doesn't work.
Done.
So this is
so
where
we're getting out, Bernard, because you did allude to earlier in one of your first answers, you said, last week I was speaking to a potential customer, and obviously we don't know who that is. Yeah, it's a potential, so you haven't press released anything.
Well, I've press released that I have an NDA with them
about HPQ Silicon. The fact that you're having those kind of conversations and the traditional guys are running into major roadblocks.
Well, what you have to remember is, and I've explained this many, many times, for a major guy. Okay, let me backtrack a bit. If you look at the curve of price and demand for silicone, okay, demand has gone up, but the prices have always fluctuated like this. And the reason for that is that my competitors, okay, are stuck with having to put 30,000 metric ton on, 30,000 metric ton off, 30,000 metric ton off. It's very difficult to adjust. So their focus, the biggest player is what? He does 500,000 ton per year of that material. His focus is, how do I place the bulk of my materials? He doesn't have time to waste time with future great market. He doesn't really have time to that. We, on the other hand, are talking about 2,700, 500 metric ton to start up with, to keep going up. So we can really go after this, and we won't have that thing. So we can cherry pick our market as we start. And that's really always been our strategy. Cherry pick ourselves with the right material. And when I say to the guys, I've divulged, I've signed an NDA with the company I was talking about. I've been amazed how patient they've been with me. I thought I was going to get yelled at last week. You imagine how it is. You have people asking for material, and you're saying, well, we're almost there. Shareholders think they're pissed about me saying that, to think about the clients. But it was a completely opposite. They said, we really want you to succeed and we really need your material, was the message I got.
Wow. That's something.
Yeah.
Last question. What would the successful completion of the QRR pilot plant mean to you, and what should it mean for investors who think profitability is further down the road with the commercial plant?
Well, one thing is for sure is the value of the QRR technology is going to go through the roof with that. We stopped being a
R&D,
PowerPoint type of company, and we have something valuable, because once we finish this, we will have all the data points. I think I've mentioned this many, many times, but there's going to be a different notch above. We at HPQ have made on a continuous basis economic evaluation of what a base case, business case could be over a 25-year period. Okay. And as I said before, when our market cap was through the roof, said it support that. So, the QRR business supported the value the market was giving us at that time. And then the fume silica also supported that. So, so what's going to happen is there'll be much more engineering work done. There'll be big reports for the big institutional investors, and the green funds are going to want to embark with us. So this is what's going to change. And what's going to change is the value of the technology is going to go up. And it's the value of the technology that will demonstrate the potential, the value of the share. Hey,
Matthew,
I think there was other questions.
No. That was just the last question from that investor.
Oh, okay. I thought we're over already. I
Oh.
thought I read more questions.
No, this is great. Matthew Hills first said, just wanted to start by saying thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. And also says George is much more handsome than you are. Question number one, I added.
Are you sure? I'm not sure
a-
that's there.
That's a lot. That may be an editing error on our part. First
I guess
question
somebody
is,
wants a pay raise at your company, eh?
and you've answered this, but I wanted, he says, do you believe the jump from Gen 3 to Gen 4 to be a harder challenge than compared to the jump from Gen 2 to Gen 3? And I think you said earlier in this interview, that the big jump is right now. This is the big.
No. We're talking about, I think it's a 127% scaling up, or no, more than that, 200% scaling up size to the other one. The other ones are going to be, I think, because it's not linear. It's not linear. It's, it's a question of volume within the reactor, but it's above my pay grade. I'm not an engineer, so.
And then the question is, do you believe the hardest engineering problems are behind HPQ with respect to the QRR?
I believe that the hardest engineering issues will be behind us once we finish the continuous operation. Basically, we will have proven. This being said, I have no doubt that the guys at Pyro will figure out how to do this, and not that there's any big issue, because I believe the system will work as designed and we'll get the material done.
With respect to the Gen 3, does HPQ currently have a means of transporting the material without contamination? And this is material, so when you're sending out samples to potential customers, how do you transport it without contamination? Good question, actually.
It's not really difficult. You put it in a plastic bag and you send it.
I was about to say, it's not like you put it in a plastic bag or something. Really?
Exactly what you do. All the materials is sent in basically big bag, like, the material. If we want to be really picky, we can try to do what's known as a hot sample. So when the material comes, we put the material to get it super guaranteed purity. But in the center of the material, we as purity will be in small layers on top. So we know it's knowing and giving into it. The issue is more with, let's say, with the quartz, when you use or as long as you don't use like an iron material to break the damn thing to get the chunks, then you're okay. But you use ceramic, you use material. There's ways to do this. It's not a
big challenge.
Issue to deal with.
I think the answer there is not a big challenge.
No. Yeah, that's the right answer.
After most of the samples go out to the customers, is the idea to then use the QRR to make the feedstock for the nanosilicon reactor?
It's going to be I'm going to continue on this. The nano reactor is one of the feedstock we will use it for. It'll be also used for the silicon nitrate. It'll be used. You have to understand that nanosilicon reactor is designed to do nanosilicon size, which is one size of the battery industry that's looking at one. But that one is much more at the R&D phase. And I'm talking not us, but I'm talking about the battery guys. The micron size is more of what's being used right now, which is the one that people are seeking. So that we're looking more at finding a quicker way of turning that into commercial material. But we're studying the market, see what's out there, and see how we benchmark against it, and then we'll be able to move forward. But that's not going to take that long to do.
What is the team at Novasium more excited about? Playing with the material that comes out of the QRR or the NSIR, and why?
I think it's going to be more coming out of the QRR, because that's more the level of expertise. These guys have a massive amount of expertise at silicone purification, doing what there is. What they're really exciting is how do we make good battery material out of this? So that's one of the things that really excite him. And then the other one really excite him is going to be, how can we take the QRR material and make it good material to generate hydrogen? So that really excites them too.
Common Sense is the next investor. Hey, Bernard, George, the focus in press release nowadays seems to be mainly on the PureVap QRR. Does this mean that the focus at Pyro is also mainly on the QRR, or is the attention also going to NSIR, the nanosilicon and fume silica? And you kind of touched on that earlier with the dedicated team.
Yeah. I will say this. Okay, right now, The level of attention is the QRR, fume silica, nano silicone. And I'll explain this for the very specific reason, is that the fume silica next year will have a pilot plant the size of the Q or the Q3. Okay. And I'm hoping to be in a position relatively soon to have samples being sent. As one of the big companies in the fume silica business, which also is interested in the battery size, told me, was sort of very funny. I had a meeting or a virtual meeting with one of the top VPs in the fume silica industry. He says, you know, the battery stuff is make-believe. Fume silica is a real market. That's literally, and the guy, that company has a big section doing material for batteries. So that was like the internal competition between the two groups. So now, don't people get like we were working on battery stuff, but the fume silica can also become very, very big material. And because of the government financing and where it is, we'll have a second pilot plant like the QRR, hopefully starting next year. That's where the timeline seems to be. And if that works, but we also should be in a position to have some samples pretty soon produced. So I'll issue an update on every one of the business line that we're developing very, very soon. The reason why I only talked about the QRR is I believe at this moment, that's where everybody was focused. Yeah. And if I talked about something else until we start making silicone, it come up for people to say, oh, you're just doing this because it's not working, which is not the case.
Sometimes focus is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Are there more or less 3 different teams at Pyro for the 3 different projects, or is it one team dividing their attention between the 3 projects? And again, you touched on that question earlier about they can walk and chew gum.
But also you guys got to remember there's a different TRL level of where your projects advance. Okay, so there's the first TRL when you think the technology and you do, you know, the first test of the Gen 1 and Gen 2. That's that TRL. So that's the R&D brain-maniacs. Okay. Then once you get to the pilot plant, you know, the guys, the TRL at the beginning of all those tests have sort of like moved over to the secondary team, which job is to basically build the machine, operate it, get it to work within the design of the first guys that come in. And then we start the machine, and then everybody starts to get involved. So there's multiple teams that come in and out and do everything else. That's why it was sort of like unimaginable for HPQ at the beginning to do it all alone, because it requires so many depth of expertise at different level.
You would have pulled out your hair by now, and you'd be
we'd be dead.
You'd be a cannabis company.
Oh yeah, we probably would have tried the cannabis stuff. Maybe we would have smoked all of it.
Common sense ends up with keep up the good work and ignore the frustrating, unjustified declining share price. The next climb, in my honest opinion, will be the sweeter for it. Octavia says, thank you for doing this. And again, we're going to start getting to some questions that overlap, but I want to make sure everyone knows.
Yeah, that's fine.
And by the way, I want to thank everyone for submitting some amazing questions, taking the time, because this is helpful for everybody. It's almost like a group think here, which is great. Everyone's asking great questions. Everyone's getting great answers. That's fantastic. So I want to make sure everyone's kind of acknowledged that. Is HPQ strategy to involve a large partner to accelerate their growth in business quickly, or sell the IP rights for a good price?
I think it'd be more the first one than the second one, because selling the IP for a good price, there's a good chance that people will just park it, and I wouldn't like all that work we've done just to have the technology parked because a competitor wants to pay a big price just to get rid of it. And I think with all the end application that there is for silicone, there'll be multiple opportunities to basically piecemeal multiple reactors for multiple applications. You know, you guys have to realize that the market for silicone is going to grow by 1 million metric ton probably in the next few years. There's no capacity to do it. There's going to be the need for green shield project. Now, I've said this at the beginning, and I knew it sounded arrogant. Okay, well, it still probably sounds arrogant right now, but your choice is going to be to use an old process or use a QRR. Silicone, the other one, the one I can't pronounce correctly, demands are going through the roof. All the applications are going through electronic. Everything is going to need this material. Now you got all the ESG principles coming into it. Remember, 4 kilograms of CO2 produced per 1 kilogram of material. That's a big thing. We think we have a good way of dealing with that issue, but that's another subject for another day. But so there's all those needs, and feedstock is going to become an issue. Material is going to become an issue. Where do you locate this? The energy requirement for it. So think about this. Our system being smaller, okay, although we use the same amount of wattage of energy per ton, since we do less ton, we use less electricity. So we can find better place where we can situate ourselves. We have so many strategic advantage in a position where there's a need for this industrial material, and then there's a need for a green process to do it. If you think about it, like it's perfect timing.
Yeah, timing couldn't be better, and you have everything as a.
But as Octavio said, or the one before said, you know, the market right now, the market doesn't respond to that, which is okay, because it will respond.
What's the strategy to make the business big? So I'm going to interject my own language. What's the strategy to scale up the business without a lot of capital in a short amount of time? And I'm not even sure that's your strategy, but ultimately, what is, because you and I have talked about this before in previous interviews where I've said, Bernard, when the time comes, when you're ready, how are we going to get the word out? What kind of marketing, joint partner, you know, we're going to bring on salespeople, and you've talked about going to conferences. So the question is, Addis, again, maybe you have more visibility now. What's the strategy to scale up the business?
Okay. Now let's deal with one issue, an elephant in the room, which is, you know, how much is going to cost to scale up and build stuff. And I think we've already addressed this issue. Because we're not a mining company, we don't have the cost of developing the mine. It's going to be somebody else's issue. So we're just going to be developing the technology and making money out of it. So it's going to be an industrial project, which means that we'll be able to get in some good leverage into the building of it. Second of all, because it's smaller, you know, we're not talking about massive capital amount to start this business to generate cash flow. We're talking about $40 to $50 million. If you compare that to another company that had a graphite project that ended up, you know, having to be converted into a anode manufacturing division, that's $1.2 billion. So we're not the same scale. We have a much more human size or right size growth strategy. Well, of course, you know, if there's more capital that comes in and people want us to speed up the delivery, we'll have no issues doing it, because we're looking at copy and paste and make it grow. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think that's the answer. Next set of questions comes from 007.
Oh, James Bond.
James Bond himself. Hello, Bernard, longtime faithful shareholder. Recent press release stated, quote, during this phase, the system will produce high purity silicon material on a semi-continuous mode, and HPQ will be sending out samples to potential buyers, end quote. Question, can you clarify you're referring to sending out samples during Gen 3, not Gen 4, and possibly to the major auto manufacturers that inquired previously?
Okay, let's make it very, very clear. When I speak about sending samples, be coming out of the Gen 3. It will be, you know, we'll be dividing where we go with our sample material and how we use them. But from each process improvement test, we anticipate that we will have silicone materials into it. First of all, we'll get the purity done, and then we'll start working around those issues and start figuring out, you know, I've already got a few multiple process looking at to how we can make the materials that battery manufacturers want, other application wants. That's what we're going to be doing. So it is going to start it's starting from the Gen 3. It's going to be starting relatively soon, in the sense that we'll have the material, then we'll convert. Because you have to remember, for battery manufacturers, they want a purity, a certain size, a certain distribution. But what Novasium has allowed me to do was to focus much more on what is being done presently commercially. While with the nano reactor, we're looking at what the future of the industry is going to be. So, you know, this is where it's playing. We're playing the two sides of it. We're looking at the future and we're looking at the present.
And then the last question is, On a lighter note, they say, many years ago, I had a spiritual epiphany that Pyro would be a massive company and that 3D powders would put Pyro on the map. And that HPQ Pure Vap would be the next catalyst that can actually eclipse all of Pyro. I almost fell off my chair when recently the Vice President of Corporate Affairs, Steve McCormick, stated at a conference in New York about HPQ powder process, quote, it's one of those things that could potentially usurp all other divisions. Do you dream and believe that as much as I do?
I do. I don't think people realize how big for Pyro and for HPQ this is going to be. But just the forend making the material, the potential of that in the silicone market is going to be massive. The battery size is going to be great. And there's so many other applications that we're just touching the tip of the iceberg.
Okay. Janisman brings up something that we now know the answer to. So Janisman and Matt Boy and Mag Beach all ask about EBH2, but we now know that EBH2 is done.
Yeah, but people have to realize that EBH2 was one of those, transaction that was too good not to do, because it was very binary. It was either going to be, we paid really nothing for something that's amazing, or we paid absolutely nothing for something that doesn't work, which is exactly what it came out to. Plus, it became the catalyst for us to be able to do our changes. We always wanted to go from a mining company to a technology company. But once we did the ABH2 transactions, the TSX that came in and says, oh, you guys should do the transition now. So it was easier for us to go through the process, as opposed to us going to see them and, and all those issues. So it's a plus. The guys at Novation, and it showed me personally how amazing our technology team in France has with where we are at Axle One. We had access to full laboratories. We had the equipment to dry out the hydrogen coming out of the system, make sure we had the electronic, exact scientific time. The first time we did it, which was more ad hoc, we were using less scientific approach to calculating the volume. At the end, it was very, very precise, very, very, very well done. So it shows that we picked it up a few notches with that.
Mad Boy also added on there. First of all, he's got a question about the NSIR, but we've talked about, samples and all that, sending to validation for customers. So you've talked about all that. Mm-hmm. But the other question that's a little more specific, and I'm not sure if you can answer this specifically, but when could we expect the auto manufacturer to receive the material they requested?
Okay, let me make this very, very clear. The auto manufacturer, when he contacted us, knew full well we couldn't do the damn stuff. Okay, it's just that they're so desperate for that material that they came in and says, okay, we want to be first. So as soon as I can have that material, I will send it to them. In the meantime, we are looking at different ways of making different materials because there's different specifications. But it's the same discussion as you said with the big material company. Okay. They approached me, they signed the NDA. They're the one that came to me, and I'm the one that's feeling bad because I'm always behind schedule because it's the timeline of the R&D. And yet when you talk to them, it says, we really need what you're doing because nobody else is doing what you're doing. So please keep us in the loop. And as soon as you have the material ready to go. And I think that's the same thing that's happening everywhere else in the industry. You have to realize that we're not making silicone anode material. We're making silicone material that other people will convert into a silicone anode material. Sure. And the issue, what we will bring to every one of those players is consistency of quality, consistency of cost, consistency of issue, which is what their end buyers are going to want. They don't want a material where every batch has become different. And then if there is an issue, you've seen the issues with LG and the material for the US cars, how batteries, how those lithium batteries can become very flammable. So consistency of quality becomes very important. And this is a niche where we fit in.
Just flipping through. I want to make sure I don't ask you because I don't double up the questions. So thanks, Matt Boy. And Mag Beach's questions were EBH too, so we won't go there. Money Poet. And by the way, thanks to Mag Beach, thanks to Matt Boy, thanks for Janiman for the question. Sorry, EBH2 isn't there to talk about any longer, but that answers those questions. Money Poet. Hello, Monsieur Tourillon. Thanks for doing the Q&A. Your press release today that deferred Pyro Strategic Investment HPQ brought to mind HPQ's own investments in Beauce Goldfields and Quebec Silica Resources. I like your strategy of spinning off legacy business to focus on your main business while retaining an equity stake in the legacy business, as you have with both of those. But does it create new homework for investors doing their due diligence because your balance sheet now is levered partially to these other entities?
I don't really think so, because it's an easy line to read. There's value of investments, and it's related to the moving up and down. We've been extremely lucky or good in those managing because we've done many of those transactions. I think our first one we did was with a graphite company. I think we bought for less than $100,000 to claim, and we sold it for more than $1 million. So that's been a very profitable way for us to finance, some of the working capital required to get the project advanced. Our Beauce Goldfield was sort of like a legacy project into it, and I think there's great potential there. Our QTZ is more a strategic investment going forward, in the sense that there is a synergetic position between the two companies. They want to develop a quartz mine, and we will eventually need quartz, and we know that their quartz should work with us just because of its location to the quartz we've already used. So that's very beneficial to the two companies. That's going to be moving forward. If there's other of those types of transactions, well, the third one we also made a lot of money was with Pyrogenesis. We participated, we bought some shares at 19 cents, and we generated some good returns into it.
All right. So then the last question from them is, might we see more of this kind of activity in the future? I guess the obvious answer is probably when it's available, probably.
Yeah, and nothing would stop us. Let's say that the nano reactor is very interested to some group of batteries, and we could spin that off into different companies, or we get some other type of situation. I'm not close to that idea. I'm not saying we're doing it now. I'm just saying I'm not close to it. There's a difference between the two.
Merci, and Money Poet says merci, and then in bracket, le poète du fric. Not sure what that means, but you find
just a translation of money. He just translated.
Okay. Brodeur 9, and I think we're at the end here, my friend. So perfect time. We're coming in just under an hour, and we didn't even mean to do that. I was doing some DD scattering, and I came across something that pleasantly surprised me. Extro Technology seems to make an electric motor based on SiC-based inverters, silicon and C. I'm not sure what the C is.
Yeah, it's silicon carbide.
Okay, base inverse. All I know this about the company, about this company from the few hours today I did to read, but I found it very interesting to share with you, especially with the Q&A. So I want to bring up the information and maybe find out more if you're ever aware of this possible, quite staggering market. If HPQ related to the electric motor, in addition to the anode, the alloy, and others. So is that Extro? I'm not sure if you're familiar with Extro because they provide some links.
Well, I actually saw that post yesterday and did a bit of research.
Great.
And then somebody came up and answered. Although I'm not sure about the answer of the person. Silicon carbide does not need to be ultra pure, but maybe in that application it needs to. Okay, silicon carbide, just silicon and carbon into it, basically mix into it. Now, for proprietary reason, I won't get too much into detail, but that could be a market that would be interested in us looking into it, and I think we could have ideas how to get in there. But at this moment, I won't get into too much into it.
All right.
But for that application, I don't know. But if you go back to our deal with Novation, I don't know if we mentioned this. Yes, I think we do mention it. Yep. There is in Novation already a patent for manufacturing carbon particles for supercapacitor batteries. So we're already in our foot a bit in that area through Novation. So that's already one of the technologies that's there that could become a use into it. Just point of interest. I'm not going to get too much in details, but it's multiple small graphene materials combined together that allows to do that. So I'll talk more about it eventually. It's just at
But
this
great
moment,
find.
I was
by
more
Brodeur
focused on the
9 for
QRR.
everybody.
Huh?
Great find by Brodeur 9, and to bring that to the attention of everybody, and for you to
Yeah.
say that you've looked into it and that there's something there. So that's
Well,
awesome.
basically, silicon carbide has always been a market that interests me. It's an interesting market. I think it's a potential. It could be another great potential market where we would also have a strategic advantage into it, because we make the silicone and just figure a way to put the carbon into it.
And Brodeur 9 says, thanks for taking the time and keep up the good work. And also adds, and I confirm George is more handsome than you are. So finally, Matt Boy, even though had questions earlier, has this question, and I thought it was settled, but from what you said before we got on the call, it needs a little clarification. Has the classification from mining to tech company been completed yet, or is it still processing? If so, when can one expect to see the change?
I don't know where people get that. I know, actually, I do. I do get it, but I'll explain it why. Actually, if you go back to a July 15 press release, and you go back to the TSX Venture Bulletin of September 19, effective July 21st, we are a technology company. We're no longer a resource company. That's why I was allowed to sell my properties. So if I was still a mining company, I'm not into it. Now, we issued a press release. It was there. But I understand where the confusion comes along. It's because the TSX in their forever logic, okay, and the investment world in their forever logic like to put numbers behind what you do. So they have to plug you into something. Now, as weird as it is, the table of numbers, okay, doesn't have silicon metal manufacturing technology companies doing the industry. It's even more bizarre. They consider technology companies only companies that work with computers. So on the TSX, it says sector of activity, metals or mining, okay, and or, okay. But we're metal, we're technology, and we're actually not even really making a metal because it's a semi-metal metallic material, but it doesn't exist. So basically, they just said, okay, it's close enough, we'll stuff you into there, that's where it is. But we are a technology company since July 21st. The bulletin has been issued by the TSX. So you have to understand, the TSX infoping is a one business, and the regulation side is a complete arm. There's a Chinese wall between the two. They couldn't, they've issued their bulletin for them, it's done. Business deal is closed. The other side is, and we, when somebody raised the issue, I sent an email to the TSX, and they came back to me and says, well, that's about the only place where we can figure out where to fit you. So it's not us. It's just the difficulty of, everybody has to be put into a certain algorithm number.
Right. Another great question, another great find. And I love that ends the Q&A. And I just love the level of detail the investors went into on this. And I want to thank everybody for making it happen, because without the great questions, we just can't get the answer out of Bernard. Bernard, last word to you, my friend. Anything that we didn't cover and you quickly want to comment on, or any last words to the shareholders?
I'm excited. I really am. It's the key point is that we've been working very, very hard to get us here, and we are here. Okay. And it shows the insanity of the market, because when we were at our maximum market capitalization, we didn't have a tenth of what we have right now. But that's just the market reality. So my message is to investors, I feel your pain, I understand your pain, because I have a lot of shares. But the micro environment in which we're in has never been as supportive of what we're doing. Okay. There's going to be trillions of dollars invested in green technology investment, and this is where we are. Silicon Si is one of the key ingredients, and we're coming to market with new technologies. And in the coming weeks, we will have made our first material. So it's like we're at the end of the process. Now comes the other great part, is like building up the companies and moving forward. But we will have demonstrated, big check mark. We've done it. The QRR works. The previous press release was that. It's just we keep doing the check mark, reaching the goals. Okay. The market doesn't respond the same way right now. I understand that. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Phone's ringing.
I understand that, but as a company, we've never been in a better position. Okay, we have the funds to get us to the next stage. We have interest from multiple end user what we're doing, and what we're doing is a niche application. I just listened to, because I sent some of my guys to a conference on silicon in Iceland, and I read the report, and I'm saying they're sort of saying there's going to be a shortage of silicon. China's not going to be able to meet the backup demand. All right.
They might never be allowed to meet the backup.
Well, that also plays into it.
Just from a government
if you put all these things together, and nobody's going to want to have an old freaking dirty plant next to them. So all the macro environments is there. Billions of dollars are going to be invested in green technology. There's $1 billion of green funds. Okay. And so we know the size of the market. We'll know how much it costs us for us to make the material. It'll be an easier business case to present. I'm not struggling. The market is going to go up by 1 million metric ton. It needs green shield plant. It needs what we've done. So, eventually the market will wake up to that reality. But right now, I don't think it's 100%. I don't think what HPQ has done is relevant to what's going into our share prices.
Hey, the most important thing is you keep growing the operation, you keep checking the boxes, because at the end of the day, to be a successful company, you've got to build a great business. And you guys keep checking the boxes. And I think I speak on behalf of a lot of shareholders who say we're just as excited as well. And my famous saying, because I've been in the situation before where you don't like where the share price is, but I said, hey, I'm not happy, but I'm not worried either. And I think that applies to HPQ. No one's happy, but I'm not worried either. I can't wait to see what's going to come out of HPQ in the next 30 days, 3 months, 12 months. And then and that's going to determine the winner of the race at the end of the day. But Bernard, your voice made it. Your company's made it. And I thank you so much, buddy, for coming on and talking to all the shareholders and doing this Q&A, and can't wait to do the next one with you.
Okay, thanks.
To everybody at home, thanks for joining us. Thanks for submitting the questions. Hope you guys are happy. And if you got more questions, keep posted to AGORACOM, because Bernard will be there. If you got more questions stemming from all this, and that's usually how it happens. Can't wait to see all guys next time. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you soon. Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel and never missing another great AGORACOM small cap video.